Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today I want to talk about NIO as the stock's trading considerably lower than their competitors as well as my own price targets for it. But before we begin, it would mean a lot to me if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you actually like the content. In return, here's a picture of a baby seal. In this video, I'll go through some of the fundamentals, the financials, do some technical analysis, and then my own price targets. If you only care about the price targets, I'm going to leave a timestamp in the description, so just click that. For those that aren't familiar with the company, NIO manufactures EVs, and we all know that there's a really high demand for EVs, and it will persist in the future. So according to Bloomberg, Q3 EV sales rose by 94% year over year. That's really high growth, and it's expected to persist in Q4. And then it does say that the outlook for the next year is also bright, so I think it's safe to assume that the rest of the year will probably be the same. And then if we look at China, so China's Q3 EV sales actually tripled, which is really high. And considering that NIO is actually in China, this is really promising for NIO. One of the main issues people have with EVs is their battery range. Fortunately for NIO, they've got that covered. They've currently got 3 models. They've all got over 300 miles of range. And then they've also released a new battery, which I think they'll be introducing very soon. And that's going to go up to about 500 miles, which is a lot. And most people will probably be happy with that. Plus, they're constantly innovating, so I think they'll remain competitive in the future. In terms of demand for their cars, NIO is based in China, and China is leading in EV adoption. So as long as they can provide the supply, I'm pretty sure they'll have the customer base for it. Plus, they're expanding into the EU, which is going to lead to even more sales. Another really good thing about NIO is their battery swapping service. I don't think anyone else does it, but I may be wrong. I'm not too sure. So there's 2 ways to charge NIO cars. You can either plug them in like every other car, or you can swap your battery out. So the way battery swapping works, you drive your car into this, or it drives itself in. I think you set it up and it drives itself in. But anyway, it goes in, the old battery gets removed from your car, and then they put a new one in, and it's all automatic, so I don't think there's any people messing around with it, and it only takes like 5 minutes. That's insane. If you get, so you spend like 5 minutes in your car, your battery gets swapped, and you're good to go for like 300 miles on an EV. That's pretty much as fast as filling up your tank in a gas station. The swapping service only costs $150 a month, and you can swap your battery 6 times. So that's 1.8k miles. Most people don't even do that much. You will literally have to be an Uber driver and drive in 20 hours a day to maybe cover 1,000 miles or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. It's really worth, so from a consumer's perspective, that's quite cheap because most people spend over $100 on fuel anyway in a month, and if not more than that. Okay, let's have a look at the financials. So all of these numbers are in thousands as always. So first of all, cash. They've got 3.3 billion in cash, and so in Q3 they burned about 440 million. But then in Q2 it was 120 million, and then Q1 was 760. The reason for all these big jumps is stock-based compensation and stuff like that. So I think in Q2 there wasn't that much. So if we look at other income expenses, so they lost only, well, not only, but they lost about 120 million in the quarter, which wasn't too bad. And then obviously in this quarter it would have been, so in Q4 they delivered 25k vehicles compared to 2021. That's a 44% increase, and that's really good. Obviously we'll see what happens in January and Feb and March and Q1 in general, but it's gonna be an increase, I assume, roughly 150k, which was a more expensive quarter, but because they're a new company and they're expanding in different markets, so their R&D and G&A expenses are gonna be going up, so they're probably not gonna be profitable in Q4 or Q1 or Q2, but I do think that they might actually turn a profit into the end of the year or maybe early 2023, because if we look at their revenues are growing nicely. So 212, 580, 700, 1.2, 1.3, 1.5 billion. And then profits are also growing as well, which is really good, which is what we want to see. And then obviously profit margins are going up slightly. Their actual profit margins from their vehicles are growing, but yeah, I'm not gonna pull that up right now. If we look at these graphs, so just revenue, cost of revenues, and gross profit, revenue is growing nicely, cost of revenue is growing as well, but we can see that the cost of revenue is slowing down in when compared to revenues. So that's really good, which leaves a higher profit margin. Now Q4, we already have the delivery numbers for it. So thinking about their yearly deliveries, from a year ago, their year-over-year delivery growth was 110%. That's double. And I think in 2022, we'll probably see the same. And obviously, we can see really high numbers here as well. Plus, they've only got 3 models right now. Once they release the other 2 new ones, that's going to be even more production and more sales. In addition to that, they're also expanding into Europe, which is going to lead to more sales. So I think they'll do really well. Moving on to the most exciting bit, price targets. So the average analyst price is $60. We can see a low at 34 and then a high of 87. 87's probably very euphoric in my opinion, but it's doable when you compare it to how Lucid and Rivian is trading. Yeah, that would make sense. Anyway, my price targets. So shares outstanding. I've assumed that they're gonna dilute their shares 3% year over year. And then revenue 2021. We know how many EVs they've sold already for Q4, even though the earnings aren't out. But their revenue is gonna be about 5.5 billion over the year. I've assumed 80% growth, even though it actually has been higher. And then obviously it declines over the years. Now, this is too, like, the further we try to estimate, the harder it is. So this isn't completely accurate, but if we look up to maybe 2025, that's probably somewhat, accurate-ish. So if we look at I've priced it at fair value of 10 times price of sales. That's actually really low compared to the competition because Rivian or Lucid are trading at way higher prices. But NIO is in China, and we all know that the US has beef with China, and people are just scared to touch Chinese stocks. That's why I've sort of undervalued it and priced it at a lower value. Now, even if we look at a 10 times multiple, the price should be at about 35 and it's trading at like 25 right now, and then at the end of 2020 it should be 60. So in my opinion, I think the stock should be valued a lot more than it is right now. But then if we go euphoric, obviously that might not happen because the market's crazy right now. Prices go up really hard. And then market leader, this is supposed to be 50, not 80, but yeah, my bad. Anyway, this is sort of more Tesla evaluations, although if it was like Tesla, it would probably be like 300 here. Anyway, yeah, I think there's substantial upside here as long as the company keeps growing and it doesn't go bankrupt, which it won't because it has so much cash right now. On to technical analysis. On the weekly, the 50 moving average is going to act as resistance, but we're quite far away from it. Then so the 200 is going to be resistance, the 50 is going to be resistance. Right now we can see that we've just about made it over the high of the gap down from about 2 weeks ago. So we need to see us close over it. Then we've got a downtrend here. We'll see if it rejects, it might come down, and then obviously after that it's going to be the low of the before the gap down. So if we can clear that, break this downtrend, and then we'll probably meet the 50 here. We see what happens. I do have some shares right now, so depending on what happens, I might exit out here if the whole market starts going down, because right now everything's bouncing. I may exit, but other than that, I'm probably gonna stay long and then see what happens. In terms of other resistances, we've got these tops, which correspond to that low down there, and then these tops are going to be resistance as well, which correspond to these lows, and then that top is going to be resistance as well. But by then we'll probably see the 200 cross somewhere here, so that's TA. In terms of support, basically, so we reached a low of 19.2, but we see that we closed the day on at $20.90. So buyers stepped back in at that sort of $20 level. So I think 20 is strong support. So if it starts sliding, I would watch 20. I think 20 is probably a really good entry point. So to sum it all up, I like the company. I think the stock's undervalued, and I'll just be buying more shares. What do you think about NIO? Do you plan on trading it? Do you plan on buying some stock? Do you own any stock? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for stopping by. If you found any value in this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.